Hey there, everyone. Thank you for joining today for our org merges with Prodly. Just going to show you some ways to have some easier org merges. It's already 2 after the hour, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Just some quick housekeeping notes. You are all going to be muted, but you can ask questions in the chat box. We'll try to get to some of these at the end of the webinar, but depending on the technical nature, we may follow up with you afterwards. But one way or the other, we're going to get you the answer you want. And we are recording this. We will get a copy of this recording out tomorrow, the 16th. So keep an eye out in your inboxes for that. Quick introductions. My name is Joe Marshall. I'm the Customer and Partner Marketing Manager here at Prodly, and introducing our speaker today, Abby Malvestuto, who's Customer Success Manager.
Hey there, nice to see everyone-ish.
And so we just have this webinar set out in some question and answer format to sort of highlight what we wanted to touch today. And we'll start with the first question for you, Abby. What exactly, when we say org merge, do you mean?
So for org merges, right, the purpose of an org merge and the criteria for an org merge, basically you have two orgs, org A, org B, and they're two separate Salesforce orgs. So this is more than just having a dev box and a full copy within your same org. The idea here being the second bullet point, which is org A has a different object and field metadata than org B. Also, the overall goal of the merge is to move record data from org B into org A so that it fits the requirements of the different metadata schema. Okay. So when we're talking about use cases, right, why would I ever want to do an org merge? So usually an acquired company needs its data merged into the parent company's main Salesforce production org eventually. Also, a Salesforce org has re-architecture project needs for the data from the legacy org to start use of in the new org. And then adoption of a new managed package requires data remapping to fit the new objects and fields. That's something that we see often as well.
All right, so question to follow up on that, sort of, all right, we know an org merge is. What are the stages of a successful org merge?
So when it comes to org merges, there's a lot of hoops that teams usually have to jump through. A lot of it is in the prep work. So when you're ready to do an org merge, you have to plan for when you need the org merge completed. This is something that teams usually run into, is not giving themselves enough time. So however much time you think you need, you probably need a little bit more than that. So if you think 4, maybe give yourself 6. There's a lot of coordination and testing that is involved when you're moving data and metadata like this, from point A to point B. So the idea there is the easiest part is moving the data. It's the in-between that takes the most time. So then you want to think about your ETL path as well, right? So where are you extracting the data from? How are you transforming the data? And then how are you going to get it from point A to point B? So you want to establish exactly the data needs that you need to be merged, and then focus on your merging needs for that data set. So as I alluded to, the build is also going to be part of the prep work involved. So you have to determine the exact nature of the system matching and extraction logic. So what that comes down to is which system is going to be the legacy org. So this is usually going to be your source. Where's the data coming from? That's all part of that. Which system is the destination org? Any matches or established compatibility between two orgs. That's going to make your life a lot easier. So from there, when you're ready to build out the ETL logic, right, because we're extracting, transforming, loading, any matches at the object level between orgs, any matches at the field level that you might be able to map out. If there is no matches, if the objects and fields don't match, maybe the record types don't match, things like that, then it comes down to how are you going to transform those things. So after that, you're done all the prep, you've done all the build work, and you're ready to just go through and execute it. You want to run testing to confirm that the data properly transferred and that everything looks good. And then check for duplicates and any errors. Again, that's just part of the testing. And then whatever your phases of validation are. So examples could be spot checking, peer reviewing, business review. Maybe the teams have to go through and review everything, so on and so forth. So from there, now that all the data is from point A to point B, it's going to be assessing what worked, what didn't, what can we be doing now to make sure that the next org merge runs smoothly if this one didn't. If it was a difficult process, why, and how can that be mitigated in the future?
All right, so those were the 4 stages of an org merge. Now, how can Prodly help with that?
So when it comes to Prodly's role in org merges, as we've seen an uptick in people using us for this, building out an ETL toolkit is where we shine. So for Salesforce to Salesforce data, you can use the data sets within Prodly to go from object to object, field to field. Also within that, you can use data sets, you can clone them, and then you can always adjust them for your needs, especially when you're transforming different things between the two orgs. For outside of Salesforce into Salesforce, you're going to want to load the data into your sandbox first, where it can be cleansed and just kind of verify that all the data looks good. And then from there, you can merge it with other data in your full copy sandboxes, and then eventually production. And then you can use Prodly once it's in Salesforce to promote the data after it's tested in that sandbox, and then promote it into your UAT and then eventually production. So this slide is a lot, but this is kind of the nuts and bolts of how we can use Prodly in order to do pretty much everything that I mentioned in the previous slides. So from here, we can see that we can map field A on object 1 to field B on object 1. We can also map different, well, I guess just to sum this whole thing up, you can map different fields to different things, different objects to different things. You can map record types. You can even map fields like A, B, and C on object 1 to a single field on a different object, things like that. Also, pick list manipulation is something that you can do as well. And we'll show you examples of all of these things in part of the demo. So feel free, if you wanted to, you can screenshot this slide, or when we send you a copy of today's webinar, you'll have this as well. Okay, so here's just an example of that. And again, I'll show you what this looks like as part of the demo. But here we can create new records for an address custom object based on existing account record data. And then you would choose the deployment object and the destination deployment object, and then you would define the field mappings. So you can do all of that kind of in the same screen, essentially. You don't have to leave Prodly, you don't have to go into a different app to do any of this. I'll show you how to do that. And then when it comes to executing and monitoring, you can use Prodly to verify that the data has migrated successfully. Again, that's just a matter of checking out your deployment results and seeing what worked and what failed. For anything that did fail, you can remediate any errors in the deployment and then redeploy after you have fixed it, because it's going to pinpoint exactly what those errors are and how to fix them. Additionally, if you aren't sure how to get around any of those errors, you can always contact your CSM. We have so many different tools available to help you through that, or we can get on a call and help you through it. And then from there, you can perform smoke testing after the deployment to verify that the data in the system isn't messed up and everything's good.
All right, so let's take a look at what this looks like. Abby, I'm going to make you the presenter.
Sweet deal. Okay, so let me get this data set pulled up and then I'm going to share my screen. Start screen sharing. Oh, is it going to let me pick? Is it letting me pick the screen? Joe?
Yeah, Abby, if you click that in sharing where it says show and click that scroll down bar, you'll be able to see which screen you want to share.
Because it says that there we go. Here, this is better now. Okay. Joe, can you see my data sets?
Yep, I think we're all good.
Okay, cool. So basically what I did, I went through and created a data set specifically for today. So we are in org merge edition, yay. So a couple things to note while this loads. Same thing as when you are doing a normal deployment, I am logged into Prodly in my control org, okay? So my control org is production. This is where I'm logged into. This is probably one of the main things that we get asked a lot is, well, if I'm logged into production and I'm trying to do a deployment from an outside org to our org, how does that work? Where am I logged into and where do I access Prodly? Logging into the control org, everything happens from the control org. And then all we have to do is just adjust the schema settings. So we're gonna come here to this button to adjust the schema settings. I've already set this because I was in here messing with the data set. I can't really do much with the data set without setting the schema settings first, right? There's no way that Prodly is gonna be able to see or account for any of the custom object, custom field, so on and so forth, nuances between your legacy org and the org that you are trying to migrate to without doing this first. So I've set my source, which is the legacy org here for testing. The destination is my org, right? This is going to be our Fizzly org. So this is going into staging. Obviously, I'm not pushing straight into prod. We know this. So I'm going to hit OK on that. From here, let's go ahead and give you an idea of what I put in this data set. So I'm going to come here to diagram view. It's the easiest way to do it. All right. So a couple things here. I know that this is a custom object that exists in my legacy org. This does not exist in our org. So I had to go through and map this. I'll show you what this looks like. These are just some things that I wanted to move over based off of my prep work. I already know that there's not a whole lot that I have to change between these. There might be other objects as part of my data set that I wanted to include just to make sure that I get the records extracted out of my legacy org and into my current org. I might not need to map all of these things, but same rules apply with just any other data set. If I care about moving that record, if I care about maintaining the relationships and the lookups, I'm just going to make sure that I include it here in my data set. So let's go back to my root object. Today, the root object is going to be the account object. It's just the easiest way to do it to kind of show you guys what's going on. From here, let's see, this all set. Let's check. I don't need to worry about including any parent relationships to object, or sorry, to the account object. That's going to be the highest that it goes. What I am concerned with, though, are my child relationships. So what I know I need to map. On the account object, we have an object field in my legacy org called best new custom field. So with this field, I know that it doesn't exist in my current org. Do I want to include this? Do I not want to include this? I have the option to map this field if I wanted to select a destination field to map it to, I don't really have a comparable field that I want to map it to, and it is something that I think I want to keep. So instead what I'll do, and you can do this a couple of ways, I'm going to do this. I'm going to configure my field settings, and I'm going to tell Prodly to just create the missing field. So now I know that when I push this, this field will exist in the destination, which is my staging org. I know some of you who have maybe used datasets before, you can see this, create missing fields. Keep in mind, if you check this, it will create all missing fields. So if you guys are doing an org merge, you might not want to check this because some of the fields are bunk data. You don't really care about having it. You don't want to clutter up, your current org. So you might not want to check that. So if you wanted to be a little bit more granular about the fields that you're bringing over, that's how you're going to do it. You're going to come in here and do it at the object field level, okay? So the next thing that we want to do is I know that we have record type transformations that need to happen as well, and I wanted to resolve those. So in my legacy org, we have best random record type. I know, I'm very creative. But I'm going to map that to just our default record type in the destination. So this is how you're going to map record types. Something else that I wanted to do, since I know, based off of this, that this custom object exists in my legacy org, but it does not exist in my current org, and I didn't want to just add it in there. I wanted to map it specifically. So if we come in here, right, account, I am now in the best miscellaneous custom object. I mapped this to account. I went through and took a look at these object fields, in setup, and I determined that there was enough similarities between these two objects that I was able to go through and just map it. So I'm going to map it this way. Okay. So the other thing that I also found out after kind of going through and looking at both of these schemas in my respective orgs is I have a lookup on the opportunity. And we're going to find it here. We have a very confusing lookup that is on the opportunity. And we know that it is looking up to that custom object. So here it is. I've done it at the parent level. Keep in mind, okay, we know that this is looking up to the opportunity, so I'm looking at the parent relationships here. So here's the confusing lookup. I know that it's looking up to that custom object. I know that that custom object is about to get mapped to the account object. So this is the field on the account object that I chose. And again, as soon as you turn on enable transformations, guys, which is this thing right here, probably glossed over that. This is the thing that you care about right here. As soon as you turn this on at the root object level, all other objects in your data set, you're going to be able to do all of these transformations with. So again, going back to here, going back to the opportunity, and going back to that crazy, confusing lookup field. The parent level, bingo. This little pencil icon here is going to allow me to map all of these things that we mentioned before in the previous slides. So this is how you're going to do that, okay? And the last thing, pick lists. Pick lists is something that actually comes up a lot. So we're going to go back here to diagram. Here on the contract, I know that there's a pick list that exists. We have a similar pick list, so all I really want to worry about is just resolving the pick list values. So let's take a look here at the object field. So in my legacy org, the name of the field is where are they at? Okay, not very descriptive. Also, the values can go either way. but I'm going to map this to service location. This also exists on our contract object. It's just a different pick list field. So we're going pick list to pick list. This is what I want to do. I'm just going to take a look at these values. So for service locations, instead of saying things like best pizza, a lot of corn, we're going to say that this is the Midwest. If you're from New York, I am not sorry. We have the best pizza here in Chicago. If you like it, we can create your own demo org if you'd like, but things like this, okay? You can map your different pick list values, save everything, this will save. So from here, I actually went through and I did push a deployment before the webinar. And we can see those results here. Okay. First thing of note, I have no errors, which means any potential errors that I would have gotten with any other data loading tool have been resolved. I know that there are no other issues with my schema as well. If you guys have issues with your schema from point A to point B, you will get errors in here that say, hey, make sure that you are resolving your schema. From there, you can always click on view results and you can see what the differences are. If I click on view results here, and I'm sure some of you guys have seen this before if you have ever done a deployment with us, but this is kind of the money right here. You can actually see for the contract object, this is the record that was brought over, and this is what it looks like in the source. This is what it looks like in the destination. And you can pull it up right there and then. If there was an error with this, obviously it would not have been pushed to the destination. And then I can just go back into the source record URL. It would have given me an error message over here. I can see what it is, resolve it, go into the source record URL and see what the difference was that I need to fix. But basically, for example, here, I know that this is coming up as the Grand Canyon. Maybe I want to be a little bit more descriptive. So here we are in staging, which is my destination. It has mapped it to the southwest. Okay, so this is, again, very high level, very brief overview. There's so much more that you can do with this, but this is kind of, you know, in a nutshell, what it looks like. Joe, were there any questions so far? Anything?
We didn't actually get any questions today, which is all right. Hopefully that means everything you presented was pretty clean and made sense. So if you do happen to have any questions, you can reach out to your CSM about this. But Abby, if you don't have anything else, I think that concludes our webinar today.
No, that was absolutely it, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for the time. And just as a reminder, you will receive a recording tomorrow of this webinar. Thanks all and have a good rest of your Tuesday. Bye.
Bye.